This week's challenge is God worse than Hitler? Okay, you got to read the details of this challenge, but there are three things I want to say in response. Number one, the issue is kind of brought up that Hitler he causes great harm and kills people, and this is kind of temporal punishment. And God, on the other hand, he's involved in kind of eternally punishing people, and so this is a problem. Well, I would say on that issue, number one is that the heinousness of a crime is not determined by its duration or the duration of the punishment, right? So that doesn't enter into the equation here. It's looked at as, well, God is worse because now he's not just doing this for a short period of time, he's doing this for everlasting life. Well, the question is, what's the nature of the crime? That's the issue here, okay? And then secondly, of course we would say Hitler is not justified in doing what he does, targeting an ethnicity to wipe them out. Yeah, that's morally wrong. But God doesn't do that. God is not involved in genocide. God is not targeting people just to wipe them out because he doesn't like their ethnicity, okay? God offers a consequence to the seriousness of sin. And so there's a consequence to our moral crimes. So the analogy doesn't fit. Okay, the second response would be, looking at this issue of good people, right? The challenger says, God is sending good people to everlasting punishment. Well, the question would be, well, what is good? And what standard of goodness are you using? In fact, what standard of goodness are you using to measure that, Hitler's actions? If you say Hitler's actions are bad, okay, you are implying some moral standard by which you're judging Hitler's actions. So where does that standard come from? What standard are you using to judge the actions of good people? How do you determine that they're good? So where's your standard? So I think this is going to be problematic for the non-theist, for the person who doesn't have God as their standard for morality. And of course, if God ends up being our standard, well, what's that standard like? That standard is a holy or perfect standard. God is morally perfect. So now when I use that standard, do people look so good? I mean, certainly if I compare myself to Hitler, I can look pretty good. If I compare myself to a morally perfect being like God, I don't look so good. That's why Isaiah says our good deeds are like filthy rags. And so by what standard are we using to measure good people? And I would say if we use the standard of God and his character, then no one is good. There are no good people that God is sending to hell. My third response would deal with this questioning of any credible evidence, right? God sends people to hell because they don't believe something for which there's no credible evidence. And so here would be my question for the person who raises this, is what would you consider to be credible evidence? What would you count as evidence? Because there are many, many people who think that we have credible evidence, that the evidence suggests that God is real, that Christianity is true. So I think we're going to have to, in this challenge, kind of unpack what's it mean that there's no credible evidence. Because I would say there is credible evidence, but that's going to be determined by what you say is evidence that you will accept. And so those are the three key issues I see in answering this challenge.